Hi.
Hello and welcome to Knock Knock Hi with the Glaucomfleckens. I just said like hello and hi. Do I do that every week?
You didn't. You said hello and welcome.
Hello and welcome, but then I say knock knock hi. I'm giving two
I think you're
greetings.
overthinking this.
I probably am. I'm
Yes.
your host, Will Flannery, also known as Dr. Glaucomflecken.
And I'm also your host, Kristin Flannery, also known as Lady Glaucomflecken.
We have a very, very special episode today.
Yes.
It's a little bit different.
Yes.
This is a little off the beaten path for us. And it's somebody we've been wanting to get on this podcast for quite a while. We finally got it done. We are talking to Lieutenant Aaron Gregg. Now, Lieutenant Gregg, who he wants us to call him Aaron, so we'll call him Aaron, is a very special person in our lives.
Yep, very meaningful.
Because in May of 2020, when I had a cardiac arrest in my sleep, he was one of the paramedics, first responders who came to my house that night and worked with Kristin on saving my life. And we have him on the podcast.
We do.
So this
Very
is
excited about it.
Yes, it's so we talk mostly a lot just about that night, and he gives us amazing insight into the mind of a paramedic, first responder, and what went into saving a life in May of 2020 with COVID raging and so much uncertainty. And it's a harrowing discussion and story. Many of you have heard it, but no one's heard it from his perspective, and
Including us.
So
This was our first time being able to hear it.
This is all just a new perspective for us as well. And this does touch on some difficult themes and challenges. And so just keep that in mind as you're listening. And there's talk of death and also some challenging situations he has experienced as a paramedic and as himself, as someone experiencing healthcare with him, his family. And so, it can be tough to listen to at times, but ultimately, I think
it's important and meaningful and very insightful.
Absolutely.
And he's a firefighter paramedic, and I see a lot of parallels between what that line of work has gone through over the last few years and what the workers within the healthcare system have gone through over the past few years. So, typically we have on a physician or somebody that studies, what would be the correct word, like physician types of issues. This is still medical, but it's a lot more related than you might think when you start looking into how the pandemic has affected the first responders' lives and careers, and how it has affected that of healthcare workers. So there's that level of interest in this episode as well.
So let's get to it. All
do
right.
it.
Here is Lieutenant Aaron Gregg. Well, we are here with, I call you Lieutenant Gregg, but I understand now you're retired. Is that right? From being a firefighter?
Yes, my days of firefighter paramedic are over, and gratefully.
So I'll just call you Aaron now, or do you,
That's my
is that-
preferred handle. Yes, the lieutenant stuff. I would tell my crew only when there's chiefs around. Other than that, just Aaron is fine.
Now, how many years did you serve as a paramedic firefighter?
It was 25 and a half on the dot.
25 and a half.
Yeah.
And was I the one that forced you into retirement? Was it me?
Well, we'll get into that, but you played a role. You certainly played a role in that. But yeah.
Are you enjoying life now as a retired?
Well,
paramedic?
I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I know a lot of people are like, "Wait, you're only 50 years old. How could you retire?" And it's like, well, you do 25 years in the fire service, and it takes a toll. And y'all don't want a bunch of broken old people coming to your emergencies, broken in the body, broken in the mind. So there's a reason they get us out of there when they do. I'm super grateful for it. It was an amazing career, but I'm really happy to be done.
Well, we could certainly could get into the toll that your job plays on all of this, every aspect of your life as a paramedic firefighter. But I suppose we should just start at the beginning here. Um, I'll kind of set the scene for our listeners, and we've given you, we talked a little bit about you here at the beginning before we started recording, but uh, I want to just put everyone in Mother's Day 2020. And that was when obviously the height of the pandemic, like things were like starting to happen, and you know, uh, everybody was trying to figure out what was going on there, and what kind of safety precautions we needed and all this stuff. Vaccines weren't available at that point. Um,
It was
and we spent
Wild
the day,
West. We, I
it
mean,
was,
It really was.
we
it was crazy,
we had
right?
no idea really.
Yeah. Um, and, um, and so we, on Mother's Day, we spent some time with Kristen's parents. And then, I always get the timeline wrong with this. And
Yeah.
so Kristen, can you take it from here?
Yeah. Well,
You have an
uh,
excuse though, right?
Right?
eh,
Still dealing with the memory issues here.
yeah. So we were at my parents' house. We kept it all outside and kept everybody kind of far away from each other and all of that. But we at least got to be able to hang out and kids had a water balloon fight in their yard and just kind of tried to make the best of it in a pandemic on a holiday. Um, and then on the night of Mother's Day, we went to bed, and then at 4:45 in the morning, I woke up because Will was making a lot of really unusual sounds. At first, I thought he was just snoring because I was really groggy. I was coming out of a deep sleep. And so I kind of like pushed him, like people do, and just try to get him to roll over and stop snoring. Um, and that usually works, and he's usually pretty responsive to that, and he'll just kind of like roll. But he didn't do that that time, and then he started making the sounds started taking on a more like urgent kind of quality. I don't know how else to explain that. And our most of our listeners will know that that was agonal respiration is what he was doing, but I didn't know that. And especially it being May 2020, I thought, oh, he's making these weird respiratory sounds. Maybe this is related to COVID. Um, and he wasn't responding to me at all. And so I called 911, and the dispatcher, Lisa, is the one who recognized that he needed CPR. Um, and so she started walking me through CPR instructions. And so
And
I
so,
did that for 10 minutes. I couldn't get him off the bed for various reasons. And so I had to do it just on our bed. And, 10 minutes later or so, Lieutenant Gregg and
you guys
his
showed up.
team came in and took over.
But I want to start, Aaron, with kind of when are you roped into this situation? Because
Yeah, I'd love to hear this story from your
yeah,
perspective.
because a lot of people have heard it from our perspective, but as soon as Kristen called 911 and we got on with the dispatcher, then what
He
happens?
says we.
I was part of this too.
You were a major player in this. We don't want to downplay that. Well, Saint Lisa, I think we could
Yes.
say, as soon as she hears what the information that you have with the unresponsive, I mean, as soon as that, she's making magic happen. So
Mhm.
while you are saying these are all the things, the computer's already working, bells are going off. I'm levitating out of my little bed at the fire station from all the ruckus, and that's how we get roped in.
What kind of an alarm are you talking about here?
Well, they supposedly toned it down, so it's like this computery do 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 kind of thing. And honestly, I can't remember it now, but if I heard it, I'd probably start sweating and
Yeah.
freaking
Yeah.
out. But it's still, I mean, when you're and I think that night I was trying to remember, but I think we were at a fire with the truck company earlier that night, so we had gotten to bed late. So it's like,
Mhm.
where we work it wasn't uncommon to be up 2, 3 times a night or just not sleep at all. So once you finally get there, you're in it. And
And how big was your team here? How many people were at the firehouse that night?
so at our firehouse, we had the fire engine and the rescue slash ambulance. So there was 6 of us there. And that's one thing I continually people are amazed. They're like, well, I just wanted the ambulance. And they're like, why is there a fire engine here? Uh, because it takes more than 2 people to do good work on tough calls. That's the main thing. And also, generally speaking, there's more fire stations around than there are ambulances.
Mm.
And where it's private companies, it's just cheaper to have fewer ambulances on the road. Um, but in this case, our ambulance was run by the fire department, and it was there in the station with us. So we had 6 of us coming. But once they recognize it's a cardiac arrest, then they add another company. And so that was a truck company from the other nearby fire station that they headed that way too. So we had 10 people coming from the fire department, which is a mix of paramedics and EMT intermediate. Well, I'm sorry, advanced now, EMT advanced and EMT basics. All heading towards you. Plus, they send the cops because they've all got AEDs in the trunk. And so often the cops are the first ones there. And I don't think on that one they were, because again, COVID made things totally weird, and the cops, rightfully so, weren't just going to go running into medical calls. So
Well, tell us how, because so you guys, you got all your gear.
Did you get to slide down the pole?
not at that fire station. We do have a few that do, but not at
Can
your
you make
local
it so
one.
I can slide down the pole?
I still have some ins there at the fire department. I haven't burnt all my bridges, so
Okay.
we
Could
could
arrange for
we
that.
could definitely arrange for that. But yeah,
I just think that'd be fun.
Why do we do this if not to be able to slide down a fireman pole every so often?
Okay,
Um,
I just got to stop you right there, Will. It's firefighter, man. You
oh,
got to get it.
Ooh.
sorry.
It's
Yes,
all right.
yes,
It's
you're
all
you're
right.
right. That's a good point. My mistake.
It's all
Yeah.
right. I mean, I know
Um,
all doctors are men, but there are women
no,
firefighters.
Oh,
you're
oh boy,
right.
we're getting into dicey territory.
Oh man, you know what? We could edit that out, but let's leave it because it's a good reminder to everybody. My mistake. The call came in, and you're getting all of your gear, and then you touched on COVID making things much more difficult. Does it start immediately with the changes that were made, like peak COVID? Like, is like more gear you're having to get? When are you
Yeah.
putting it on? Do you wait till you get to the house? Like, how does that work?
So yeah, as we noted, this was pretty early in the pandemic, and so we didn't know what COVID
Mhm.
would do. There was reports of all sorts of different things. There was reports of cardiac arrest involvement in COVID. There were reports of, it was just chaos as far as information. Fortunately, we were one of the organizations that had PPE. We had all the PPE we needed, and just forever grateful for that and the work that the department did, logistics and the chiefs to make that happen. But at that point, we were wearing what we carried around in our backpacks for hazmat incidents. So we had these things which were often referred to lovingly as chip bags. They were full plastic suits that crinkled and it'd be kind of compared to making a suit out of a blue tarp, but they were crinklier than a blue tarp. So full sleeves, cuffs, hood, etc. So yeah, we were, as soon as we heard cardiac arrest, for cardiac arrest calls, that was absolutely what we were wearing, because it was aerosolized stuff we're dealing with. Um, so that was one of the reasons we were slowed down getting to you, because I know some people are like, you had to do CPR for 10 minutes. What kind of podunk fire department takes 10 minutes to get there? There was just
Uh,
some extenuating circumstances
yeah.
we'll get to,
Yeah.
but one is everybody putting on all this stuff, and then once we arrived, then we're putting on our masks, but they were not good old surgical masks. We were wearing our SCBA masks, like what we wore into fires, literally the same masks we wore into fires. We were putting on, and then we had a P100 cartridge, which is like this big around and like that deep, this giant canister that we had an adapter that came onto the front. So, and then our hoods are up. And so every crinkle, we just got noise. We're yelling at each other through these muffled masks. And then we're running in to save you. But, but on the way, I do remember that we heard 30, because you were 33 at the time.
34.
34. Yeah.
We heard 34-year-old cardiac arrest. We're like, this isn't a cardiac arrest. This is a seizure. And not uncommon to go on seizures or alcohol overdoses, or, where you get there and there's somebody doing compressions and the patient's trying to punch them. And so for a moment, as we're getting ready, and then we get in the cab and I start reading the notes, and I'm like, no, this is legit. This is for real, because of what Kristin was describing to Lisa and what she was, letting us know. And then Lisa continued to give us updates along the way. So we got plenty of time to get really worked up as we're waking up on the short drive to your home. But then that's when we had a little more adversity, in that your home was in a line of homes. And I remember it was the fourth one. We pull up to the address and we're like, our directions, because Kristin was so dialed in, was like, here's the code to the garage. You can walk right in. And we're all thinking the garage is right in the front by the front door. And we get there and we're like, no, it's not. So then we, all six of us, because we had arrived first, the truck hadn't arrived yet, we go grab all of our gear. So we've got, whatever it was, 5 kits, suction, monitor, a couple different bags, and we go running down the block to come back around the backside to find your garage. Which, that was like my main focus, is don't screw this up, Aaron. Because as the guy who rides up in the front right seat, that's one of my biggest jobs, is getting us to the right spot. The driver's job is to get us there safely, and my job is to make sure we're knocking on the correct door. So we get there, punch in the code, the garage door opens just like it's supposed to. And then my crew gets up to the door into the house, and they're like, it's locked. And I'm thinking, oh no, did I count wrong? Is this the wrong address? And because I'm still waking up. And I was like, exactly. I'm like, no, the garage door opened with the code. This is the right place. And luckily, as I'm processing this, the guy who's in front just kicked your door off the hinges. And we all went barreling in.
Never been so happy. I always joke, we've never been so happy to have structural damage to our home. So
yep, that's right.
If there was a reason.
I was going to ask if you were the one that got to kick it in.
No, that's why I have my crew to do all the hard work. Like, I carry the clipboard or the iPad in that case, talk on the radio, do some pointing.
Yeah. So you finally got in the house. And
Lisa had asked me if the door was on the front door. She specified, is the front door unlocked? I said, no, it's not unlocked. But sometimes we left that door that goes from the garage into the house in the back. Sometimes we left that unlocked, and sometimes we locked it, and it was just kind of random. I just couldn't remember if we had locked that door that night or not, but I thought, well, I know every other entrance into the house is locked, so that's the best bet. But yeah, I remember at some point when you guys were outside the house, I could hear, so we had our windows open in our bedroom that night, and so I could hear people talking outside my windows, sort of, because our bedroom was on the same side of the house as the garage. So I could hear that you guys were out there, but I couldn't make out what you were saying at all. And so there's this period on the 911 tape where I keep asking her, are they here? And she keeps saying, yeah, they're here. And then I'm like, are you sure they're here? Because I could hear you, but I just couldn't figure out what was happening. Well, they were all in those exactly
and hoods on.
And so I was shouting out the window. I mean, I was, leaning my head toward in the direction of the window and shouting, trying to say, like, we're up here, we're up here. So I don't know if you guys could hear me, probably not with all that stuff on. But yeah, I remember that of just like, there's people out there, and it seemed like you guys were having trouble being able to get in.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was that I wish I would have thought to say, I don't know if that door is unlocked or not, because then maybe you would have been, better informed to be able to know how to get that door
I
open.
think you did better than 99.9% of people in giving instructions on how to get to our house.
I don't think there's anything you really could have done better in the situation.
Yeah.
I think if you ask any dispatcher, that would have been a great call for a kid who stubbed their toe. I mean, somebody who didn't have to
Yeah.
worry about the fact that they were exhausted from doing CPR.
Yeah.
So you got in the house, and then what happened?
Yeah, and the door didn't delay us. Those are easy, as you know.
Yeah.
They just turned to splinters.
Yeah.
Got in the house.
Well made,
Yeah.
well made door, well made house. It's good.
Got in the house, and two of the super go-getters on the crew, great paramedics, both of them. One was who ran the call, and the other one was in the back of the engine with me. He was the first one up the stairs, and he was the one who actually opened up the door to the kids' room, because he was just bolting.
Oh,
He
okay.
was often will send somebody just as soon as we can get somebody in the door to go start CPR, somebody's running. And so that's what he was doing. And he was hollering, and I don't remember if you remember us yelling fire department or again with the mask, who knows? But
Yeah.
he was the one who opened the door to your kids' room. And he told me, he's like, they just like bolted upright in bed and stared at me. And I was just like, close the door behind him,
Close the
stepped
door.
out. And then that's when made contact in the back bedroom where you were. And the rest of us were closely behind those two. And yeah, and that's where, that's one of the little movies I have in my head, is seeing you over Will doing compressions
Yeah.
like gangbusters. And yeah, and Will, you were not present.
I was not around.
Nope.
You were
By that point, I think you were pretty. I can't remember if you were still purple or if you were already kind of going pale. But yeah, you were not the right color.
And so several of you carried me downstairs, which
Well, hold on. Before we do
Oh.
that, I remember. I wonder if it's the same person, because it was a man, the first one that came into our bedroom. I remember him coming in, and Lisa had been saying a few times, when they come in, let them take over, let them take over. And he came in, and it still took me a little while. I was just in this like feral mode, right? And it still took me a little while for, he was very calm and quiet, and he just came up. And, I don't remember exactly what he said, but something to the effect of, would you get out of my way? But much nicer.
Yeah.
And I remember it took me a little, a few tries of him doing that before it registered to me that I could stop, because I was just in that like panicked mode, I guess. But, and then when we met up with you guys later, I don't know if it was you or him, but someone mentioned that when you guys came in, that I was giving him compressions so hard that my feet were coming off the floor. So I was essentially just jumping on you, trying
And
to
that was
do it hard enough.
That was the same individual that you remember. And that's him, just calm, cool, collected,
Yeah.
and just really good at his job. And
Yeah. I have a flashbulb memory of that, of how just calming he was.
You were jumping on me and somehow you didn't break any of my ribs.
Yeah.
Well,
Still don't know how you
you're a
did
burly fella.
Yeah.
But yes, he did say, when we were kind of debriefing afterwards, he was like, she was doing it, and her feet were coming up off the ground doing those compressions. And that was a very notable part of it. And I just saw you from the doorway, because I just try and stay out of the action area, because I'll just get run over. But yeah, so that was the CPR part. And then and then I think it was that point that the woman who is the paramedic in charge, she was the one who was like, I'm running this call. We all knew. And I can't stress enough that if there was an individual that I know that needed to command a chaotic situation with all the adversity that we were dealing with and make sure a call got done well and right, it was her. Um, as I just think about the call, over these years, I just think about all the things that just happened to work to make it to, to put us here where we're talking about it.
It couldn't have been easy to extricate me from that bedroom. I'm a big guy, right? I'm
And
6'4".
you're rather lanky.
I'm lanky. I got arms and legs everywhere. So how was it? I mean, I'm sure you did it. You have a lot of experience moving unconscious patients around, I'm sure. But to get me from up there in that bedroom down a winding kind of staircase.
Yeah, you had that. It's like a sheet with a bunch of handles on it or something.
Exactly. Yes. And it's not a very nice name, but it's called a mega mover. And
Hey,
in your own right, you're a little mega. So
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
so we have a lot of experience moving people from upper stories and small spaces. We don't just grab you by the ankles and drag. The head clunking down the stairs. So yeah, it was, and again, why you throw so many people at a call.
Yeah.
So you can put 6 people on that blanket with those handles and basically kind of wrap you up, and then everybody just squeezes down that little stairwell, and you're tight enough in there that we
Mhm.
can straighten you out, we can lift you down. Of course, you being
Mhm.
dead and all made it, much
Yeah.
more difficult to manage, a body that is non-compliant.
Yeah, I remember I was following you guys and I saw the so we have a tight stairwell that turns. It's not like a spiral staircase, but it has one turn in it. And I remember as they were bringing you down through that turn, you're just so tall, right? That it just the way that your body moved, or they moved your body, I guess. It just was one of those moments in the whole thing. There were a few of these where it's just like that's not human. A human isn't supposed to look like that. A human isn't supposed to move that way, and it was just one of these things that indicates, I mean, essentially what it indicated is you were dead, right? Your body was not moving because you couldn't move it.
Mhm.
So it was just this weird contortion
Hmm.
that just seemed unnatural and weird. That's another one of my flashbulb moments. The colors that you turned is one, and then the way that your body moved around the stairs like that was another one.
Yeah.
And and then once you got me down there onto the hard floor, um, talk to me about the resuscitation itself, and how difficult that was at night. It was still dark at that point, right?
I think so.
And you're wearing like all the PPE in the world. Um, and I'm still, it's hard for me to even wrap my head around how you were able to do all the things that you guys were able to do
They moved furniture. I mean, and it was all just
under the
so fast.
circumstances. So
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit about that?
Certainly. And that's one of the reasons that generally we what we've come to know is time on the chest is the most important thing, as Kristen, proved. Uh, but uh, the PIC made the call up in your bedroom that we don't have the light, we don't have the room. This is not the best place to do this, because again, we're going to have 10 people surrounding you, and the way and our department is always, some departments around the country are different. Some are just like they are fire departments, but we're an EMS department that also fights fires. Practicing cardiac arrests and RSIs, rapid sequence intubations, for people who can't control their own airway, for the non-doctory types. um, Practicing those things regularly is something that we did, and what they had kind of developed was this pit crew approach and high performance CPR. And so everybody knows this is my spot. This is where I'm going to go with my kit. The PIC is like, you got airway, you're on the chest, you're on the monitor. I need an IV or an IO, and instantly, you know, everybody's got a job. So that was the call. We need to get them down to where there's space. Furniture starts getting yarded out. We've got a nice hard surface in the middle of the foyer there where everybody can fit and do their job. Um, and granted, I'm not a spoiler. They don't live in a mansion, so this
Right.
this foyer
Right.
is not a
Yeah.
giant
It's a
space
small
by any
space.
means,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's enough to fit people around you. And that again, I think it's practicing that stuff regularly, having a PIC who is very confident in what they're doing and has no problem directing people and redirecting people as needed. Um, those were the key components there to that resuscitation. Um, I'll give you a second if you had any question on that before I keep digging in.
No, keep going.
Well, PIC, that is person in charge.
Yeah, the paramedic in charge or
Paramedic in
person in
charge.
charge,
Okay.
whichever.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then, so well, yeah, keep going. I'm curious to hear, because I didn't stick around for most of that. So I'm curious to hear what all was happening with him. So I follow you down the stairs and I see them like put you on the floor, and I remember I heard flat lines, and that occurred to me. That was like, oh, those are flat lines and they should be beeps. And that just was like an observation that went through my mind. And then and then I have a flash bulb of you, and I couldn't see all of you because they were around you, but I could see like your arms and some parts of you, and those had turned fully gray by that point. And I remember that registered. And then they pulled out the paddles, or the whatever the real word is for them. They started to get the defibrillator ready. Um, and then I had a moment where I was like, I have been able to hold it together pretty well until now, but now I don't have a job, right? When doing CPR, I had a job that I could keep my mind on, and what information would you guys need to be able to get here as quickly and effectively as possible? And just, that's what I was doing then. And then as soon as I didn't have a job anymore, then I felt like, oh no, I might fall apart here, right? And if I fall apart, then that's just one more thing they have to do that's taking the effort away from helping Will. So I don't want to have the memory in my mind. I don't want to see what's about to happen. And I don't want to be a distraction and be one more thing they have to deal with. And so I'm just going to go back upstairs. I'm going to try to make sure the kids are still in their room and just, be up there. And so I turn and go back up the stairs. And as I'm going up the first few stairs, I heard the first shock delivered, and I heard your body just slam so hard against our hardwood floor. And that was another one of those, like, that's not a human sound. That's not how a human body would normally, fall down or interact with the floor in some way. So that was another really weird flashbulb moment. So I'll stop my part there and come back to Lieutenant Gregg and what was going on after that.
So unfortunately, I won't be able to break down all of the medical aspects of what happened. Yeah, and honestly, I can't remember, but if they were shocking him that quickly, it was probably in VFib, and so it
Yeah,
was
he was.
I was.
real
Yeah.
clear. And I know that he got shocked a bunch, and I don't remember specifically. Did you get an IO or an IV or?
I got an IV,
Okay.
and that was something that I'm still kind of like amazed, because you're wearing all this stuff. I mean, I don't know. It seems like if you're doing that much physical activity, like you're going to be sweating. You're wearing all this stuff. The face shields, the masks, I'm sure are like starting to fog up on you. Like, and given all of that, able to find an IV in someone who hasn't, my heart, other than the compressions, my blood has not been flowing for the last 10 years on its own. Oh,
10 years.
10 years, 10 minutes on its own.
Seemed like years, though.
Yeah.
You seemed like years to Kristin, I'm sure. And yet you were still able to your team was able to get the IV in, and intubate me and shock me and eventually, after I think it was
Five
five
shocks.
shocks and a bunch of medication,
Hmm.
get a rhythm back,
Yeah.
which was amazing.
Yeah.
And
And
that's oh,
how long would you say that took to get the rhythm back? I can't remember. I remember it being a little while.
it definitely was. And it is as I I want to say based on the amount of meds and the amount of shocks that
Yeah.
were given, I mean, it had to have been at least 20 minutes, maybe
Hmm.
longer.
Yeah.
Um, and with that, I think, well, I know that I was back and forth a bunch with you, Kristen, because once they had gotten Will set, part of my job is I'm going to try and find history and find out what's going on. And so that's when I ran back upstairs to find you and be like, what can you tell me? And you kind of gave me the real brief, well, I just woke up. He was breathing like this, don't know. And I think one of the first things I asked is like, does he have COVID? And I
Hmm.
remember you
Yeah.
saying, well, he's a doctor but he's had PPE for all of his work stuff. There's no, now I'm thinking for some reason you said he was recently tested even, I don't know, um, but so we kind of ruled that out. And I honestly don't remember but something I would have potentially asked is there any recreational drug use or,
Yeah, you asked about that, and I had remembered. Um, well, long story short on that, there wasn't any. But what I did know was he had woken up maybe an hour and a half or something prior to going into cardiac arrest, and he had gone into the bathroom, and I kind of sort of registered that he was doing that, and I heard him at the sink after a few minutes, just kind of like muttering something. And I kind of wrote it off as like, when you're up in the middle of the night because you had to pee and you're like mad that you woke up and, you got to get up in the morning.
I
And
remember what I said. I can't believe I'm about to have a cardiac arrest.
yeah, that was probably it.
I don't think I'm
But
ready for this.
This is going to be rough.
yeah, but I couldn't remember. Or
I have no
I
idea
couldn't make out
getting
what
up.
he had said, so I didn't have any memory of that. But I do
I have
know
no
he
memory
he
of
got
that.
up and he did, and of course, so in retrospect, I'm thinking like, oh man, was he feeling bad? Was something,
Yeah.
happening that had woken him up, and was the muttering about like, oof, I really don't feel good or something. I don't know. I'll never know. But I remember when you asked about the recreational drugs, then I was like, well, to my knowledge, he's never done any. I mean,
Who
he's
knows?
also never gone into cardiac arrest, so I guess never say never, but I don't know about anything if he did. And so I showed you around in the bathroom and I do remember this. I said, I looked around and I don't see anything out. And I'm 100% certain that if he had gotten something out, it would still be out.
I say, no, he doesn't clean up after himself. So,
So
I was like, "You're
chances
welcome to
are,
take a look, but there's nothing in here as
oh
far as
man.
I can see." So,
Well, let's take a short break. All right, and then we'll come right back. Hey, Kristen, can I interest you in a Demodex mite?
no, you may not.
You know what these little guys do?
What?
They cause Demodex Blepharitis, which makes your eyelids like red, irritated, itchy.
That's gross.
Well, you can get checked out. Your eye doctor can look and see if you have them,
My eye doctor is currently covered in them.
and I can find out for you.
Oh, good.
To find out more about Demodex, go to eyelidcheck.com. Again, that's EYELID check.com to get more information about Demodex blepharitis. Don't get freaked out. Get checked out. All right, we are back with Aaron Gregg, who we know as Lieutenant Gregg. We're going through the story of my cardiac arrest. And so let's talk a little bit, go in that vein we just finished on or actually we're just getting into, of kind of your role while I was being resuscitated, because you did mention, going up and talking to Kristen. And so let's kind of pick it up there.
so I basically, once I got the information from Kristen, I'm then running back downstairs to tell the crew, okay, this is what I know. Um,
Mhm.
so so the PIC can make some decisions or question that, think about other causes, because that's what we're doing. We're running through our list of, what's going on because this is not normal. I would get some more information from them, find out where they are. I can't remember if I was also trying to document everything that was happening. But I do remember being down there, watching them pulling up meds, and I remember one guy's like, I can't read the syringe, and he's holding it up for somebody else to try through their mask to, make sure the dosages are right. I remember watching the guy intubating you, and I'm like, he's going to club him in the head with this big, his big filter, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, but then I think I just went back upstairs and was checking on Kristen and being like, okay, so, and my kind of where I would start is just like right now we're breathing for him. We're continuing to do compressions to keep his heart going, and this is grave.
I don't know how much you realize, like, how big of a deal that was. You make it sound like, it's just kind of a routine, just going to update the family, but uh, I know that that's something I'll let Kristen speak about, how she sees that kind of, you know, the events around that.
Yeah, it's just it was so different from what I had experienced before because, by this point he had already had cancer 2 separate times, and I had been along for those as well, and, no one ever really addressed me. I was in the room with him, I went to all the appointments, I was, every step of the way I was there too, but they didn't really, you know, look to me that all the attention was focused on the patient, and there should be attention focused on the patient, of course. It's just, the person that comes in with the patient is usually kind of overlooked or ignored or just seen as a source of information for the doctor to deal with the patient, right? It's like a utilitarian, like what use is this person to me?
Yeah,
And we certainly do have those functions, and I fully support, that their family members and healthcare teams should be collaborating. Also, though, the family member or whoever it is that's in there with that patient, they're there on that patient's worst day of their life because it affects them too, right? Because they are so close to this person,
absolutely.
or they wouldn't be there, right? And so, that recognition that something is affecting more than just the patient, and that there's another patient in that room. There's a co-patient, a co-survivor of something, who also needs attention and assistance. Um, and so I had never experienced that during our cancer experiences, and then also, later on, jumping forward a little bit, when I um, was able to go to the hospital for a little bit. Um, I didn't experience it there either, and we can get into that in a little bit, but that it was just such a stark difference that stands out from all of my other experiences as a co-patient or a co-survivor in the healthcare system, that there was somebody that was dedicated to talking to me and updating me and checking on me. It's just not the norm, unfortunately. And I hope it's the norm in the pre-hospital space. Maybe it is. Maybe that's why it happened. But I don't know. But it's certainly not the norm in the hospital system.
Well, unfortunately, I don't think it's the norm. Um, I, I could go off on all sorts of different things, but I'll try and keep it centered. One of the things I do remember in talking to you, and that I was like, uh, this is a medical professional I'm dealing with right here, because you were asking all the questions, and that's like, because I think because honestly, I had no idea. I mean, just to put this out there, I had no idea that I had any part in your story after that day. And so
Hmm.
when I got this invitation to be like, "Hey, we'd like to talk to you about this," and I did a little reading and some googling, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh." But in there, I'd read that, that I had told you about like specific drugs. Like, well, I
Mhm.
got an epinephrine and amiodarone. I was like, what was I doing that for? And then I remembered, I was like, oh, because
I probably asked.
yeah, because you were like a doctor. And having gone through, and finding out, that y'all were together through all of Will's uh doctoring school.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you are practically a doctor. But uh
Well.
so that was part of why I was given that in depth of information, just because you wanted it.
Yeah.
But after that, I mean, really, that was something that I had developed in my career. Was just like, I think it's in a position like that where we had the people. There was nothing I was going to do for Will down there except get in the way. So the best thing that I could do was try and take care of the co-patient, as you said. and
Mhm.
and I'm checking in regularly to make sure they don't need anything. I'm seeing if they haven't come up with any other questions. And I do just remember doing hot laps up and down the stairs
Yeah.
in my plastic suit and sweating
Yeah.
like crazy, um, just to keep checking in with you and seeing how you were doing. And then as stuff really starts happening and we've got pulses back, um, and then for me it comes into that place. Okay, so how do I address this? I mean, obviously I'm not going to withhold information, but some people, because they watch TV all the time, are like, oh, pulses are back, let's
Hmm.
bust out a cake and everything's going to be okay. Where's the refusal
Right.
form? you know um
Hmm. And so you got a pulse on me, which is unbelievable after all that work. Um, and then you had to whisk me off to the hospital. Now you didn't know it, but you guys were taking me to an in-network hospital. Thank you, by the way. Appreciate
well,
that
I'm glad it all worked
very
out.
much. Yeah,
Well,
well, it took a while, but we got it figured out.
turned
Yeah.
out it was an out-of-network doctor, though, in the in-network
Oh, I
hospital.
love that when that happens.
I know.
Yeah,
I should have
that was
checked.
fun.
I didn't check beforehand. I think that's probably what I was trying to do when I got up in the middle of the night. It was like,
Yeah.
man, maybe I
Which
should
ones are
make a
my
quick call.
in-network?
It
Yeah.
didn't work out that way. But a few weeks after the cardiac arrest, we did have a meeting, with all the first responders, the paramedics, all of us, a nice little socially distanced meeting.
Mhm.
Um,
In the
and
firehouse parking
Yeah, in a
lot. Yeah, it
parking
was
lot
very.
in
in the parking
July.
lot in
Yeah.
July, yeah, it was a little hot. But one thing that really resonated with me was the conversation about how whenever you take patients like me off to the hospital, you drop them off, often that's kind of the end for you. You don't
You don't get to hear what
often get to
happened after
hear what
that.
happens after that.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuck with me because that seems like an incredibly challenging part of your job. Because as a physician, I always know like what happens with my patients, right? I can always find out if I have to send patients somewhere else, and so what was your mindset, I guess, dropping me off at the hospital? Kind of
Well,
tell me a little bit about that.
for me, uh, again, the guy who wasn't doing anything for you,
Oh, don't say
I
that.
I
You're
I
doing plenty.
I hung out at the house, and basically what happened is the three other people on my engine company jumped in the back of the ambulance with the PIC. So there was four people riding in the back with you, into the hospital,
And
and
you were fighting the tubes.
Oh,
Mhm.
oh, okay. See,
They
that's
told me
something
that, yeah.
I didn't
all right.
recall. And so, yeah, so
Mhm.
then they're pulling up more meds to, to
Mhm.
while they're
Yeah.
bouncing down the road in the ambulance in their suits. Um, and the truck company was still there. They helped me kind of clean up all the, because it's like the grossest yard sale you've ever seen after we've run a code. There's just stuff everywhere. Um, so the truck helped clean all that stuff up, because I think at that point I was still talking with
Oh.
Kristin, and
Mhm.
the truck's like, you need anything else? I'm like, no, you guys are good. You can clear. So I'm the guy who now gets to drive the fire engine to go pick them up. But when that was, just to touch on that, that was, I think, for me, it was the most profound moments of that whole experience was, um, And I remember very little of it, but I remember going upstairs and talking to Kristen and being like, okay, he's got pulses. He's on his way to the hospital. Everything is looking as good as it possibly can at this point. And she's just staring at me through my my mask. I got my glasses insert that goes in my mask. I mean, and she's like, "What do I tell my kids?" And I've been around a lot of people who have asked, questions in grief, in, they don't want an answer from me. They're just they're just hollering, they're grieving, they're afraid, they're scared. But this was the way I interpreted it is Kristen wanted help. She wanted an answer. And I'm just like, brain is spinning. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell this woman. Um, because their dad was dead 10 minutes ago. Um, their little kids. Uh, I had at this point, um, I think it's safe to say that Kristen was able to be a little more in the moment of the gravity of the situation. But don't get me wrong. Still wildly composed, and but I think, and I don't know, Chris, if you remember anything that I said, but I think I just
I
remember
do.
I remember saying that I guess let them know that their dad's really sick, but the paramedics are taking really good care of him, and he's on his way to the hospital where the doctors will do. Keep working to make him better. I but I remember just being like, I don't know if that was the right thing, the wrong thing. Uh, Not something that I had, and at that point it had been 23 years. Nobody ever asked me something like that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you remembered. You asked me if I had any questions after you'd given me all the medical information and you had given me a little piece of paper that was supposed to allow me to go into the hospital. Um, you asked if I had any other questions, and that was all I could think of is like, well, now my job is mom. Like now Will is with other people who can take care of him, but these kids are about to get out of bed because by this point it was like almost 7 a.m. So I was just thinking, what on earth am I going to tell these kids about why their dad just suddenly isn't here? And I am not a fan of lying to children to protect them or like hiding the truth to protect them. I believe in being honest, but age appropriate. And so I was just puzzling over like what is the age appropriate way to talk about this. And so I just remember thinking, well, this is my first time doing it. And presumably it's not your first time doing it. So maybe you've encountered a situation where there were children before. And so that's why I asked you that question, because I was like, of the two of us, you have more experience here. So what do I do now? Um, and you did. And you know what? It set the tone. What you told me set the tone for how we interacted with our kids about it for the next, several days and weeks. And um, yeah, you said that he got sick. We didn't have the equipment here that he needed to be able to take care of him, so they took him to the hospital where they do have that equipment, and the doctors are going to take care of him, and we'll probably know more a little later, and that is exactly what I went in and told them, and then they were like, "Oh, okay, what's for breakfast?" So that just like really, you know, it was exactly the right thing to say, and, I'll share it with you afterward, but my older daughter, they were 8 and 5 at the time, now she's 11, the 8-year-old is now 11, and she wrote, a blog post that will be going out on our blog eventually, talking about her experience with being a co-survivor of her dad's cardiac
Wow.
arrest, and that she doesn't know it came from you, but that is what she talked about. That we didn't withhold the information from her, that we told her what was, and she recounts what I told her, which is what you told me, and, just what that meant for her and how that helped her process things and how that helped, not be scared, but still be aware. And so it was just, that's like I have chills right now because that's just like such a beautiful, like full circle moment of, you throw a rock in a pond and you don't see all the ripples, but there's all these ripples of how your actions end up, affecting people's lives. So that was a really powerful and positive example, of just compassionate, human-based healthcare.
It's powerful. That I'm speechless.
Nice job.
Well,
Yeah, what is the
thanks.
strong work in the firefighter
Yeah, I don't
EMS
know.
world? What is the phrase?
Just
Yeah, that's like I said. I mean, I was like, I have no idea if that was a good thing to say or not, and so I mean, I'm beyond appreciative for you sharing that.
Yeah, and they are both totally, I mean, they know it happened. They know, but they're totally fine. They I think of all of us, they have fared the best. They didn't have to see any of it, and then, your guidance and what to tell them really set a positive tone for them to be able to process it and move on, and they're doing great.
Well,
what kind?
kudos to you, super mom, because
Seriously.
I can't even, I can't even imagine trying to have that conversation with my kids. And
Yeah, it was
it's
intense.
yeah, and in the midst of all that. So,
Well, what kind of effect does this whole experience have on you and on paramedics who are,
do we
doing
start the
this? What kind of
50-minute
work?
hour session now or
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Well, I see
Probably.
a lot of parallels between
Yeah.
healthcare and your experience, right, with the pandemic in particular.
Yeah.
um it's going back real quick to what you had asked, Will, is well, I guess you had said it, Kristen, but um unfortunately, I think that we've received zero training in dealing with grieving people and dealing with situations like that. What do you tell people? I mean, the one thing I remembered in my training when I was in the academy back in '96 was don't ever say you're sorry, because then they'll want to sue us.
Hmm.
Mm.
So for years, I was like, well, I can't say I'm sorry for their loss because then they'll blame us and then I'll get in trouble. And that was the extent of my training for dealing with grieving people. And that's, I mean, certainly it's something that it's kind of in the vein of your question, Will, but it kind of spins off. So um, with this coming up, I'm like, how did I end up being this person for Kristen Flannery? What because I didn't have any training. I you know I I was at a loss. But whatever. I was able to pull something together. But how did I become that? And I thought back to, I mean, I've seen some people who have done okay with that stuff. And but oftentimes what we had done is we had turfed it to a chaplain, or the
Hmm.
police maybe were dealing with it, and we just kind of hide and run. I saw some people handle it really terribly, and I knew that that was not okay.
Hmm.
And then I was thinking back to my wife's first pregnancy. Was way back in the day, but in 2002, she was pregnant with twins. She was 20 weeks along. We went to her ultrasound, and they said her bag of water is coming through her cervix. And so you need to go to the hospital and get admitted, and we'll see if we can, you know, maintain these babies. And but they didn't really tell us that. They're like, well, you'll go to the hospital and you'll spend some time, and having no idea how grave the situation was.
Mm.
Um, and she was in the hospital, I think, 5 days. Her water broke on the second day. And then she began to get an infection and was probably, we didn't have sepsis alerts and all that stuff back in the day. No Q SOFA or SIRS or whatever the kids are calling it these
Mhm.
days. But uh, she was getting septic, and they're like, we can't do this anymore. And of course, our OBGYN, who we loved, who had been with us through all this, was, not available. So we got a resident. I'm guessing it was a resident because he was wildly uncomfortable with the situation. And he came in and he began to talk to us like we were six, and that we had no idea that our babies were going to die. And it was, I wonder now if he's in therapy thinking about how he screwed that up, like I am thinking about the stuff that I've screwed up. But it was just, I was like, this is terrible. This is making this horrible situation worse because this man just doesn't know what to do. And
Mhm.
um, so in the end, our little perfect babies were delivered, but at 20 weeks, so they couldn't survive. Uh, so that was one experience that really made me think about how people are impacted, the other people around. It's not just about solving this medical issue; it's about how
Right.
we approach the people who are
Yeah.
dealing with these medical issues, and the fact that this may be, and as our old fire chief used to say, it may be the fifth or sixth fall patient you've been on that day, but it may be the only time they ever call 911 in their life. So
Right.
you need to treat it like that.
Mhm.
And so that, I think, was a real reframe for me back in the day, where I started to pay much more attention to, and basically, I guess, just started inserting myself into uncomfortable situations and trying not to make them worse. And I can assure you, I made a couple worse for sure. Um,
Yeah.
but, and then,
Well, you learn from it, right?
yeah,
And
we do. And going back to kind of your follow-up question, is we have no idea if we did okay or not. And so to I mean, it's just such a gift to know that in the instance of the Flannery family, that what I was able to do was helpful. I'd always take it as a W if I didn't make it worse. but
Yeah.
but to that, so I'm grateful for obviously the opportunity to talk about this more with you all. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's something that we don't get training in. And one of my when I retired, I had sent out a letter to everybody I worked with, and it was one of the things that I talked about, that this is something that we need to be better at, is remembering, especially at that point in our careers, we were just, everybody new and old were just burnt out because COVID was
Yeah.
so hard, and the divisiveness in the firehouse was different than we had ever seen. Our families were being fractured in the firehouse as well as,
Mm.
at home and in the nation. Um and it was one of those things where I'm just like, we need to be better at taking care of the people, not just the patients, because we're really good at doing the medical stuff, but we need to
Right.
be better at taking care of the all the other parts that come with having us show up and barge into people's homes and do what we do.
Yeah, I think it's the human side of medicine and emergency response, right? That's what I talk about a lot. Is it's not very complicated or expensive or anything. Like, what made all the difference in how you treated me compared to how I've been treated other places is you treated me like I was an actual human and you were an actual human. And that was different than all the other places, where we put these barriers up, right? Of doctor patient barrier and then the family member. And we put people in these little silos and roles. And it kind of strips away the fact that really we're all just humans being humans together. And so being treated like that with that dignity and that compassion that's really all it takes. That really makes all the difference. That is probably 90% of it right there.
And hearing you talk about your experience and the things you've gone through in your career, I'm not sure how you made it 25 and a half years doing this, but I'm certainly glad you did. I'm glad you got that extra year there at the end because I mean personally it benefited me quite a bit. But yeah, I mean the number of people you've helped, and I hope you're certainly proud of what you've accomplished in your career. It's you've helped a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I appreciate that, and that's certainly something to been working on in therapy, is is being able to acknowledge that I did do a good job. And that's not easy. I think especially for the people in our business, um, we're so often just like, we're doing our job. This is what we do. You know, thanks for, running into that burning house, or thanks for doing this, or you guys are amazing. And it's like, well, it's what we do. It's our job. And we will downplay it at every opportunity. Of course, we'll talk each other up big time, but
Mhm.
to accept for yourself that, I was able to make a difference. And that's something that I'm not readily good at. I think that that's real common with my friends that I've talked to about that kind of stuff. And so unfortunately, I that interior critic, it has a hard time fighting the blog posts and the keynote speeches that are name dropping me. It's hard to argue with that, because some
Yeah,
of
we
it's
definitely
Yeah.
talk you up quite a bit.
You
So
made a huge lasting impact in our family
yeah.
on, multiple levels. You and the rest of your team that were there that night. And one thing I want to make sure we get to before we have to go is just I thought it was really interesting. One of the things that I have talked about in my keynote speeches is because you guys were all in the hazmat suits and the shields and hoods and just all the things. All I could see were your eyes. That's the only thing that I had any indicator of who this person is that I'm talking to, what they look like. But they also just communicated such compassion and that bit of humanity that I'm talking about, right? That just that was enough to be able to see like what kind of person this is, right? This is a kind person who wants to help and who understands the gravity of the situation I'm in and how it's affecting me and has compassion for me. And that allowed me to feel safe, as safe as possible in a situation like that. That allowed me to feel like at least someone here is caring for me, and that really helped. And so your eyes made a big impact. And then, when we did have that meetup in a couple months later, we were all wearing masks because it was still COVID, but I again could see your eyes. So I was like, I know who you are. I recognize your eyes because you were
I
the only
re-
one that I ever saw. So, so I knew you right away just from your eyes. So that in and of itself was striking to me. But then you said something, I don't know if you remember, when I contacted you to see if you'd be interested in coming on, and we corresponded over email a bit, and you said, I, unprompted, without me saying anything about your eyes, you said that my eyes were one of your flashbulb memories of the whole thing too. That was one of the things that stuck with you as well.
yeah.
So I was hoping maybe you would talk a little bit about what it was, what you saw in my eyes.
Wow. Um, that and I like the term flashbulb memory. That what it is when you were asking me that question about what do I tell my kids, and it feels like it's negative to say, but it was like fear and desperation, and that was what I was feeling. That was that empathetic side of me, was just you were channeling that in, via your eyes, and just the helplessness of the situation. And I think that was what I was that's what I was seeing. And it was, um because it was your eyes that's what the picture is. um and I think that was potentially what why I felt the extra pressure to don't screw this one up.
Well, you definitely did not screw it up.
No, yeah. Yeah.
And Aaron, we just thank you so much for joining us and talking about this stuff. And for the record, I also think you have wonderful eyes.
Thank you.
As an ophthalmologist, I can appreciate a good set of eyeballs.
Excellent. Well, we'll set up a curbside once we're afterward. I got some questions.
Yeah, it's just it really was a pleasure to get to talk with you and talk about some of this stuff. So we appreciate you coming on.
Well, I'm truly honored to be here, to be a part of the story. Is it's it's overwhelming, and yeah, I'm honored and humbled by it all, but just and grateful that the crew and I were able to be there and all play our roles, and because y'all had a lot riding on that. So
Yeah,
We sure did, and I'm glad we ended up in all of your hands. You guys did a fabulous job.
absolutely.
well, thank you.
Well, take care. We'll talk again soon.
All right. Bye bye.
Well, it was so great talking with Lieutenant Gregg.
Yeah, it really was.
Did he did you learn something new like from that night just talking to him? Like
Um,
some of the details, did you?
yeah, some of
I
the
mean,
some of the
you
smaller
were
details I did
cognizant
learn.
for the whole thing, but
Right.
I wasn't. But
Yeah, no, I was curious to hear what was going on, in the other parts of the house
Yeah.
or outside or, those kinds of things. So
yeah.
it was interesting to hear, this story that I'm so familiar with, but from the other perspective.
I came away from that conversation thinking that is even more surprising that I survived.
Yeah.
Just hearing it just as like
Yeah.
the worst possible time for me to have that cardiac arrest,
Right.
and everything they had to do
Yeah.
to keep themselves safe.
Yeah, it was really scary, and everybody kept saying, words like miracle and,
Yeah.
against all the odds, and just everybody was pretty amazed that you survived it all, let alone that you
Sure.
survived, neurologically intact also.
Because like it's a 1 in 10 chance just right off the bat.
Yeah, out of hospital cardiac arrest survival rates. Yep.
And then but add in all the extraneous COVID things, I feel like that
Mhm.
probably put the chances a little bit less.
Right. Everyone was working under more difficult circumstances and limited resources and all sorts of things. But, that's why it's so important for everyone to learn CPR and to, know the signs of cardiac arrest and to have an AED close by. I know there's a lot of work that some advocates do for, public access defibrillators to put them in neighborhoods and things. You can buy them. They're too expensive right now, and I know other people are working on that problem as well. But yeah, it's just good to know what to look for and what to do about it.
Is this about the time I thank you again for,
Oh, I mean, you should be doing that every day, maybe 4 or 5 times a day.
Thank you. If you have any ideas of how I can thank my wife for saving my life, please.
No. Just
se-
being alive is thanks enough.
Let us know what you guys thought of this episode. This is a little bit different, a different flavor of what we
Yes.
typically do, but I think also hopefully pretty informative and helpful for people, anybody really, healthcare or not in healthcare.
Yeah, and shout out to all the paramedics out there.
Yes.
You
Oh
guys
my
do
gosh.
incredible work in
Paramedics,
harrowing
firefighters,
circumstances.
everybody who, first responders, it really is, it's such a challenging, difficult job. So oftentimes a thankless job. And so thank you. And there's lots of ways to reach out to us. You can email us, knockknockhigh@human-content.com. We're on all the social media websites, apps, X. We're on X. It's X now.
For now, we're there.
For now. I
We'll
don't know.
see.
It'll change, but I can't call it that. It's
I
Twitter.
know.
You can also hang out with us and our Human Content Podcast family on Instagram and TikTok at Human Content Pods. Shout out to all the wonderful listeners leaving feedback, great feedback, awesome feedback, really good feedback, and reviews. We love those. If you subscribe and comment on your favorite podcasting app or on YouTube, we can give you a shout out. Like today, South Florida fan, South FL fan on Apple says, so entertaining, really enjoy your show. Thank you,
Yeah,
South Florida
thank
fan.
you. Short and sweet. Like
I
it.
love it. It's good. And also, full episodes of this podcast are up on my YouTube channel every week at Glaucomfleckens. We also have a Patreon, lots of cool, fun perks, bonus episodes, where we react to medical shows and movies. You can hang out with other members of the Knock Knock High community. We're there. It's a nice, big, growing community. We love it. Early ad-free episode access, interactive Q&A live stream events, and much more. Patreon.com/Glaucomfleckens or go to Glaucomfleckens.com. Speaking of Patreon community perks, new member shout out to Marcus K and Tarika. Hello, welcome. We're happy to have you here. You could be, we have several positions on our city council. You could run for office if you'd like. It's a very low-key endeavor, but just, we got some openings. Shout out to all the Jonathans as always. We got Patrick, Lucia C, Sharon S, Omar, Edward K, Stephen G, Ross Box, Jonathan F, Marion W, Mr. Granddaddy, Caitlin C, Brianna L, Dr. J, Chaver W, Jonathan A, Leah D, KL, Rachel L, and Ann P. A virtual head nod to you all. Also, Patreon Roulette, a random shout out to somebody on the emergency medicine tier. Let's get that wrong. I was going to say Jonathan. I just finished the Jonathan's emergency medicine tier. Shout out to Baseball Rob for being a patron.
Ooh,
Hey, Baseball Rob.
Baseball
I like your name.
Rob.
And thank you all for listening. We are your hosts, Will and Kristin Flannery, also known as the Glaucomfleckens. A special thanks to our guest, Lieutenant Aaron Gregg. Our executive producers are Will Flannery, Kristin Flannery, Aaron Courtney, Rob Goldman, and Shanti Brook. Editor and engineer is Jason Portizo. Our music is by Omar Bensvi. To learn about our Knock Knock High's program disclaimer and ethics policy, submission verification, licensing terms, and HIPAA release terms, go to Glaucomflecken.com or reach out to us at knockknockhigh@human-content.com with any questions, concerns, or jokes, puns, limericks.
Ooh, limericks. We
Yeah.
haven't had any limericks.
No one sent us a limerick.
Haiku?
I'd rather hear a limerick.
You love a haiku.
Haikus are fine. I don't know. Please, limericks. Knock Knock High is a human content production.
Knock, knock. Goodbye.
Thanks for watching the episode. You can find more on that playlist over there. If you prefer to listen, or you just had your eyes dilated, you can binge full episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Or join the party over on Patreon, where you get early access episodes, hang out with us, get lots of exclusive bonus content. Hope you subscribe, leave a comment below. Let us know what you think.